So I got this call from a guy I know who is a band manager. He told me about this new band that he thought would be great for camp, NTS camp. And I receive calls like this periodically for my job. So at the time, I don't think much of it. And I initially just went to check them out online and see what kind of people they were, listen to their music, etc. And I looked them up on social media and didn't find anything, which was a little odd. So I went to their website. And after listening to some songs, I called Jonathan back and I said I was interested in having a conversation with them. So he lined it up. And the band was Zealand Worship. But while talking to Phil Joel and his wife Heather on Skype, along with Ben, their drummer, I realized these guys were for real. They were not only talented, but their heart for youth aligned with our heart as an organization. And they were some of the most genuine people I have ever met. So we booked them for a week this past summer and have really developed a friendship with Phil and the band. And we're going to be interviewing Phil today.
What's really cool about Phil is his background. He used to be with a band called Newsboys. They're still around. He's no longer lead singer. And I remember being a fan of Newsboys almost from the beginning. They came to visit my college in their very early days. I helped them unload out of their van, actually, a couple times. And then Phil joined and brought a lot of really cool elements to the band. Obviously, he's got a great voice and presence. Met him here and there during different tours. And knowing where he's been, knowing what he's experienced, he's performed in front of probably hundreds of thousands of people. But like Jason, like you said, he's the most down-to-earth guy. And we've become friends, and it's been great to get to know him. And he's got some really different insights about social media that we think you'll be interested in. So we do an interview with him today, and we hope you enjoy it. I'm Jeff Eckert.
And I'm Jason Brewer. And this is The Thought Factory.
Today we're talking about social media again, and we have a special guest who I'll just admit from the beginning I'm a huge fanboy of this guy. He's been amazing, had an influence in my life, and I've gotten to know him recently and am so impressed with his heart for God and how just genuine he is as a person. And so I want to introduce Phil Joel today. It's good to have you with us, and we'd love
Jeff.
We'd love to just have you talk about your story. Tell us a bit about yourself and what's going on.
All right. Well, first up, we need to talk about you being fanboy. All right, because since we've got to know each other, you've played it pretty cool, and you haven't really mentioned much. You sort of said, no, I know a little bit about what you did. So, all right, thanks for coming out of the closet there. That's good.
Yeah. I know it's all audio, but right now he's wearing a Phil Joel is awesome T-shirt with a big face on it. Just gets him in the mood.
It does.
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you, Jason.
Appreciate you having me on the cast. I know you guys, it's been fun getting to know you guys, and as we sort of, become more friendly, you've started to unravel a little of how I'm sort of functioning these days and what I'm sort of, how we're operating, and obviously social media, and that's what we're talking about today is a big part of the world we live in. And even being, music ministers, or even, I don't know what we call ourselves, I'm creating music, we have a record deal, we make music, we create media, and this is a media saturated world, and social media is such a big part of how things get marketed and presented to people. And so it's a big deal. And so but it's also an interesting thing because it's definitely tweaking with us in all kinds of ways that we didn't really see coming. So I think it's a really important conversation to have and continue to have. So kudos for you guys getting this ball rolling and keeping this conversation going. So as you've got to know me, you've realized my stance, I guess, on social media is a little different than maybe most musicians. I'm just not really too down with it. Straight up, I just don't dig it. But I get it. It's helpful. It's easy. It's quick. It's convenient. But I just feel like social media at large kind of takes more than it gives. Communication is cool, but there's something about this, man. That and so I have to tell a story though. I mean, the reality is I've done Facebook, and there is a Phil Joel Facebook out there somewhere, I think, and it's still open, or I think, I don't even know, but I know I opened it about 4 years ago when I was asked to be a part of Winter Jam, and Winter Jam is this big tour. And I was going to be in front of 600,000 people, wow. And so the manager I had at the time was like, you must do Facebook. You've got to connect with these people and stay connected and let them know that you're making music and doing, whatever. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. And kind of went against my better judgment, to be honest, and opened it. And sure enough, man, I got hooked. I was just in. It just kind of got me. I was like, oh, okay. Got to post today, got to send out something, got to take a photo of this big crowd, got to let people know that. I don't know what I was thinking, but it kind of made me just really self-absorbed and self-aware and self-obsessed and just stuff that I don't want to be as a Jesus follower, as a person who's trying to follow Jesus and his example of serving others and regarding others better than myself and all of these things that I'm trying to to become more of. Social media sort of turned back the clock on it, made me go backwards, made me become more me-centered, and really worried about what people were thinking about me. And I started comparing myself with other musicians and other people, and I started feeling gross, and my family sat me down at one point and said, Dad, we don't like you on social media and this must stop. We must end this. And
so it was like
I knew
it's like an intervention kind of thing.
It was totally an intervention, it really was.
Was your family still on social media? Were they on Facebook? And
no, they weren't. They weren't. And as a family, we've really kind of kept an arm's length on it. I love being a dad, and I love having family, and I love being a husband, and and I like having a home, and I don't know, man. I don't want to just post photographs of everything I'm doing for everyone in the world to see, even if they are my friends. I'm just like, as much as I love you guys, you don't have to see everything that goes on in my life, and I don't need to see everything that goes on in yours. Jason, we're talking about, you cruising with your son in the car and rocking out the music and whatnot. Cool. I've got a good visual in my brain. I don't need to see photos or have a video sent to me.
I have 24 of them. So, I mean, more than 20 of them don't work, but there's one perfect one that you can see if you want to look at it.
One perfect clip on all of your social feeds. All right. Well, remind me later and I'll ignore it. No. And the music world, and in regard to even like doing what I do, okay, we make music, we put out records, we do our thing, and at some point in the conversation, when you starting down this road in this business, of course, the question is, okay, how are you working your social media feeds? How are you staying connected? And all that kind of thing. And it twists why we do what we do, in my mind. Staying connected and communicating is a good thing, but we've got to guard our hearts, and I've only got one life and one heart, and I need to look after it, and I want it to stay healthy. And if I'm really concerned with what everyone's thinking all the time and whether I'm staying connected, and then it makes my heart a little bit sick. And what people use to keep people connected sometimes is just weird to me, like photos of their families out doing things, and then photos of themselves doing this and that, and even sending out these like kind of goofy, hey, I read this scripture today, here, check this out, here's a little nugget for you. I mean, it's like, I know maybe it's helpful for some people, but I don't know, just kind of, it feels kind of weird to me. So I've said no. I don't want to do this. I don't want to waste my time on it. And I know it's made me look like a little bit of a freak. And inside me, I have this little conversation sometimes. It says, "Oh, you're getting out of touch, man. You're out of touch. How do you know what's going on out there in the world if you're not on, on all these." If you're not Snapchatting and you don't have Instagram and you're not Facebook and you're not tweeting or you're not subscribed to, how are you going to know? Dude, I know what's going on. There's news feeds. I can read the news and I can stay in touch with my friends, and I can, there are websites I visit, there are apps I have that just keep me in tune with what's happening. But, you have those little moments of panic and that pressure comes on, and I'm like, man, this is dumb. I don't want to.
I remember having a conversation with you about this past summer, and I looked Zealand Worship up on Instagram, and I actually had to laugh because there was about 1,200 followers, but you guys had zero or you were following zero people, and you had zero posts, and so I just laughed at the 1,200 suckers who are waiting for that first post.
I know.
But yet you have an account.
Pressure's on, right? That first post better be pretty good. Better make it count.
So, what's interesting to me is, so some people here already know who you are, but your former experience with Newsboys, going through that, obviously that was, I think the majority of that would have been before social media really was around, existed. And then now, so to go from that, you played in front of countless people, I'm sure, and then now starting Zealand Worship and the things that you're doing individually, that to me is such a contrast to start something now like you're doing without having a really any kind of solid social media presence. It's pretty astounding to think about. And do you continue to get pressure from other people that you're working with or others to do that?
Astounding. I like that word because it's better than stupid, right?
We would never call you that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. No, I'm not really getting pressure. People sort of figure it out, and they're like, oh, okay. It's a little head scratching for a moment, a little bewildering for some. And some people are really kind of interested and actually they want to know what the deal is. And when they ask, I'll explain it. It's not really a soapbox that I want to get on and just sort of start shaking a fist or anything. I think it's up to everybody to be responsible with this stuff, and also to follow your convictions. The convictions, it's just not really a word we even hear much anymore, but I have convictions about certain things and I have to follow them. And if they cost me something, then well, actually our convictions should cost us something, I think, and so these are my convictions. I feel convicted to not be a part of the problem. I want to be more a part of the solution. And I also feel like social media takes more than it gives. And so that's my conviction. And when people figure it out, they either they like it or leave it, or they just, I don't know. But as far as the record company is concerned, they get it. They don't exactly know what to do with it. But then again, but to me, I sort of push back a little bit. We have some sort of fun conversations. I say, look, guys, if the best you can come up with to reach people out there in the world is Facebook, is Instagram, then you're not being really very creative in your marketing endeavors. There's got to be some new ideas here. There's got to be some ways that are beyond this. And so it's good. We sort of push each other around a little bit. They challenge me, I challenge them, and we find a happy place. But yeah, I think I do get challenged at different points, and I have and it's not a bad thing, because it really makes me search my heart and say, okay, why am I taking this stance? Is it a good thing? Is it becoming prideful? What are my convictions again? And I have to go through them and sometimes remember, that's why we're staying away from this, because I need to look after my heart and I need to steward this platform well. And to me, this is how I'm called to do it. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and will probably continue to be, Jeff. We'll see.
When we met and you told me that, and I've learned more of that and seen some interviews that you've done on social media, I have to say I've been really intrigued by it. Like you said, it's piqued my interest and made me think a lot. And that's what we're trying to get at with this, is to get people to think, because the automatic assumption today is, well, if you're going to have any kind of presence in the world, you have to have social media, and especially with students. Students it shapes so much of their life, and we're coming at it saying, let's observe it. Let's think about ways that it's unhealthy, that we should protect ourselves, maybe ways that God would have us redeem it. We know, obviously, that students are not going to get rid of their accounts. at least maybe some of them won't. So, and we're not pushing for that either. And I know you're not. It's just where you are. But what are some of the
Sometimes I am.
differences? Are you?
Sometimes I am. Sometimes I'm like, hey, just have the guts to turn things off. Don't be such a chicken, man. Don't be such a coward. If something's taking you out and something's making you miserable, something's making you compare your life with everyone else's and it's making you depressed, or if you're getting bullied even, that whole bit, or just shut things down. Just turn things off. Oh, no, you can't do that. You cut yourself off from the world. No, you won't. There's ways to stay connected that are just, or maybe pick a social media platform that you feel like is maintainable, that you can control, and that is not eating your soul and is making you is not taking more than it's giving. That would be that's what I would say to some, and I'd say have the courage to follow your convictions on it. Ask the Lord, wrestle some of these things to the ground, get a conviction about certain things, and then follow through. I'm not telling everyone to turn everything off, but for some, they need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
But some, they just need to. And you have to do it yourself. I don't think anyone's, most parents are sort of scratching their heads, not exactly sure what to do. They don't want to look old-fashioned, and they don't want to be fuddy-duddy and tell kids, they want to shake. They don't really want to shake their fists at their kids, And so kids have to figure things out themselves, which is kind of a little bit sad. But They do. They have to take responsibility and go, hang on, I got to work a couple of things out here for my own safety and for my own sanity, and especially kids who are trying to be Jesus followers, who are trying to be Christians, who are asking the Lord, to lead them and guide them. They owe it to themselves, I think, and to the Lord to say, Lord, how do you want me to see this stuff? How do you want me to handle this? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to handle this? These platforms, because we all have these little platforms, and get convictions. Ask him to speak, and he will, and then follow through on what he's asking you to do. Yeah.
I know one of the things that you mentioned was we all have these seeds of pride and narcissism in us, in a sense, where the social media platforms kind of waters these seeds and brings this nature, this behavior out, where we even talked about, Jeff and I, we've talked about how social media is not necessarily bad in and of itself. It's just more of an extension of who we are and what's in our hearts. And if we are more prideful, it tends to be reflected in our social media posts and stuff like that. So as a youth worker, as someone who is trying to guide students in this world, this environment of social media, how can youth workers help students with their social media presence?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. And, you guys are probably more qualified to answer that than I am. But I think it all boils down to, at a point when a kid is beyond, I don't know, a certain age. I mean, I got a 12-year-old, and I'm continuing to teach him that he's responsible for himself. And I'm going to help him guard his heart. I'm going to help shepherd his heart as we move forward, and I'm going to help him learn and understand the times in which we live so that he can make good decisions. He can be responsible with his own existence and the existence of everyone he comes and he encounters. So I feel like we need to be teaching kids, call them kids, whatever, teenagers. Hey, this is it. This is your existence here. You need to take into account how you're going to walk this thing out, how you're going to project yourself, the things you're going to take on, what you're going to feed on, and you need to be responsible with this stuff because you're old enough now to make serious decisions. And I just don't think I think we underestimate kids, and we're like, the one thing we just sort of don't hold them to any sort of a standard, or we shake a fist and don't really give them good reasoning behind stuff, and they just do what they want to do. So I don't know. I just think, youth pastors have to help kids understand the times in which they live. And the cool thing about our age group and most youth pastors, I guess, depending on how young they are, is they've seen what's gone on before, and they've seen the ushering in of this new day and this new age. And so we actually do have a little bit of an authority to say, hey, you can't exist without this stuff, you can't exist by putting parameters on things, and making wise choices, and getting the stuff dialed in. You can't exist and not just survive, but you can thrive in the world, without certain things, and by maintaining a standard in certain ways. I don't know if this is making sense to you, but basically it's personal responsibility, I think, needs to be taught. And it's not just laying down rules and regulations. It's saying, look, this is your life, and you need to get smart enough to figure out, take responsibility for them. So it sounds kind of, I don't know, a little bit grumpy, but at the same point, it's just life, you know. As culture changes, we need to stay aware of what's going on, and we need to be responsible with the things coming at us. So yeah,
That's really good.
I don't know. I don't know if that made any sense, fellas, but
And then,
okay.
when you think about your kids, when you think about students, how do you see? What's your perception of how? I mean, you talked about earlier how it affected you, the things it was doing to you. What do you see it doing to youth culture? What do you see it doing to students?
Yeah, well, I think it's making us, you know, it's definitely making us very self-centered, and I think kids are getting, comparing their lives with everyone else's, and it's making us, kind of, there's a lot more depression on the rise. You know, people are depressed, man, they're down, and then because I think they're not focusing on the right things, and their heads are down, and they're looking at the wrong stuff, and thinking on the wrong things, and feeding on the wrong, on the wrong stuff. And it's kind of making us a little bit useless. You know, I think God wants us to really enjoy life, enjoy Him, have our heads up, be full of life and the good stuff that He wants to provide, so that we can be useful human beings. You know, I think if we're so self-absorbed, we're not going to be useful. You know, how can we keep our heads up and see the needs of others when we're so worried about ourselves and about what's going on in all these other people's little lives and little social media existences? What about the poor and the widows and the orphans of the world, man? I think God has so many cool things for us to do and such great adventures for us to be on, that I think we can stifle that stuff and end up just suffocating in a world full of narcissism and little bits and pieces of useless information, you know, and it just wastes our time. And if we waste our time, we waste our life, and that's not cool, man. I've only got one shot at this, you know, so I don't want to waste my life. So I don't know, maybe it's a bit extreme sounding, but again, this is it, man. This is our lives, you know, so we should really sort of take this stuff seriously and take some stands if we need to, turn some things off if we need to, put some boundaries and some borders on stuff, but kind of get a clue. Really get a clue. Don't just settle for the status quo. Don't just settle for what's normal and what everyone's telling you you're meant to be doing, meant to be involved in. The moment you open up different accounts too, it's like anything else. You open up an appetite, you know. I remember watching what about Stranger Things? You know, I started watching Stranger Things the other day. Someone told me I need to watch this show. You know, I watch half an episode, and then, you know, before I know it, it's 3:00 in the morning, and I've watched the whole season.
I know.
But you know, you open up an appetite to something, and it kind of gets you, you know, and then before you know it, so if you open up all these different things that people are telling you got to do and be involved in, man, there's real life to be lived, and there's real relationships to be entered into, and things that need to grow and need to be watered and nurtured, and exciting things that need to be embraced. And so many of these things, I think, can just put the squash on things, put the squeeze on things. And so, yeah, that's my little 2 cents. And at the end of the day, there's one voice, you know, that we really need to be hearing. Not all the voices of all our peers, not the voices of celebrities around the world, but the voice of God. We need to hear from God. You know I do. And this is a really noisy world we live in. So we have to be very careful about the noise and the voices and the stuff that we allow into our ears and our minds and our eyes and our brains, because, I don't know, I'm a pretty simple guy, and I can get distracted really easy, and I don't want to be distracted. I want to be able to hear from God and do the things He's asking me to do and be a part of the adventure that He has for me, and I don't want to miss out. So that's a real big reason, you know, for why I don't embrace all this stuff.
It's so good. It's so even refreshing to hear your heart and to hear your insight on this. And that's part of the main reason why Jeff and I were so excited to be able to have this conversation with you, because it's a stance that you have, but it's rooted in conviction. It's rooted in truth. It's rooted in what you want to ultimately accomplish at the end of the day, and it allows you to have that freedom to listen to the voice of God a little bit easier than when we're so distracted with social media and updates and checking out
Right.
who's doing what in the world. And so we greatly appreciate just you sharing what your thought was on this. We know it goes against the norm, but isn't that really what we're called to do? Is go against the world in the culture and what they demand of us as humans, and God's calling us to do something different than that. And so it's been really good and refreshing to hear your voice about this topic. And so I know.
Well, thanks, fellas. I appreciate it. I appreciate even kind of being interested in it, and even the stance that I'm taking on it. Because I mean, it's nice to be asked about it, because I don't want to be a guy that seemed to be like grumpy about it and shaking my fist. I really don't. I'm just, because I'm not grumpy about it. I'm just trying to stay away from it. I'm trying to keep my way clear, and trying to hear from God, walk in His ways, and keep it pretty simple. Love God and love the people around me, and it's not that complicated, but it's some of these conversations are not real fun ones to have, but I think we have to. We have to stir the pot a little bit, and otherwise we settle for the status quo. And like you say, Jason, we're called to be people who live in this world but aren't a part of it. And when I say a part of it, a part of the systems that drive this world, and the systems that drive this world are all self-centered systems, that are promising to fulfill us with whatever it is they're offering, but they won't fulfill us. God's the only one that will fill our hearts and give us true satisfaction. And so yeah, well, I appreciate you guys, opening this can and sort of stirring it up a little bit. It's good.
Yeah, thanks. That's so good, man. So good. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate your time and your thoughts and your friendship.
Well, as usual, fellas, we'll keep fighting this good fight together.
Sounds good.
Yeah. See you, man.
We'll be in touch.
All right, fellas.
See you, Phil.
Bye.
Bye.
On our next episode, we have a university professor and author on the topics of technology and social media, and we're excited to further explore this idea of students, technology, and social media. So please join us for our next episode.